Israel vows to retaliate after Iran attack. World War III watch is on.
Israel vowing to respond after Iran's attack over the weekend. The Biden administration and other world leaders are urging restraint. Matt Gutman is in Israel with the latest. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Michael. We are in southern Israel at a military base, and what you're seeing here is part of one of the 130 ballistic missiles fired by Iran at Israel. You can see shrapnel here. It was knocked out of the sky by one of those Arrow anti-missiles. This is just a section of it. Just the fuel tank up here would have been the warhead, 800 pounds of high explosives. An Israeli official telling me their anti-missile shield worked perfectly, but it was also a matter of luck that one of these didn't hit a population center, killing dozens and possibly...
Yeah, except it wasn't aimed at a fucking population center. Why are you... Bro, you're in Israel. This footage does not go through the military censors. You don't have to fucking lie about it. This is what I don't understand. If you were in Gaza and you were actually doing coverage from inside of Gaza, that footage has to go through military censors. You can't say correct things when you're covering things that are happening inside of Gaza, because by law, by Israeli law, for those of you who don't know, the only Western journalists that are allowed to enter Gaza can only enter as embeds on Israeli troops, Israeli brigades, okay? They can only go into Gaza with Israeli troops. They are very limited in what they can show inside of Gaza because of this reason. And beyond that, all of that footage goes through Israeli censors. Now, on that front, that censorship obviously fucking... that censorship obviously is very successful. And even then, Israeli violence in the Gaza Strip is so glaringly obvious that, even the censors can't fucking stop Western journalists from being like, yeah, this is a lot of goddamn dead babies, But here, when you're talking about it, you don't have to fucking slip in and be like, Iran was trying to hit, densely populated civilian areas. And it's like, well, definitely not. They definitely were not. They said they were not, and the ones that did hit, the 3 or 4 ballistic missiles that did hit a fucking military base.
Possibly triggering a regional war.
The Middle East on edge this morning, with Iran vowing a massive response to the slightest action from Israel, as Israel vows to retaliate for that rain of missiles.
Iran will face the consequences for its actions.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convening his war cabinet for the third.
Well, how do you know that Iran wasn't aiming at civilian targets? Because they said so. And I'm inclined to believe what they have to say in this matter, especially considering that they, one, gave prior go-ahead and multiple fucking warnings before retaliating. And also, I think the real reason why Iran wasn't targeting civilian dense areas is because this was theater. This wasn't like an act of genuine war in general, but instead a very calculated and very limited retaliation that would be conducted in a way with American knowledge ahead of time and Israeli knowledge of the consequence of that, so that, one, they did a show of force and they demonstrated that they can fucking strike Israel, and 2, they didn't kill civilians so that like Israel would have all of the reasoning to go back and fucking retaliate in kind and hit Iranian soil in general. Obviously, Iran doesn't want the fucking smoke either. You know what I mean? Like, that is the reality. I'm not one of those guys who's like, oh, dude, America gonna find out. Like, Iran is, the IRGC is gonna fucking destroy everybody. Like, no, nobody wants, especially Iran, I would say, as far as regional actors goes, is definitely one of the more reasonable ones in that area, definitely infinitely more tempered than any of these other fucking countries in the region, especially when you consider that UAE and Saudi Arabia were literally doing a genocide a couple of years prior. Iran is the only fucking country in the region that has done its fair share of domestic violence, for sure, and it has done its fair share of violence to non-Shia sects in other parts of the region. But most of the time, their military operations are conducted against like some of the more fundamentalist sects that are legitimately American enemies as well. So overall, this retaliation and the fact that they had not hit Israel or anything for that matter directly after October 8th for 6 fucking months shows restraint. The fact that they were doing this after demanding from the UN Security Council some kind of respite, some kind of legal repercussions for Israel, was actually another indication that they are engaging in some level of restraint. Now, that restraint you could say is because they're like wise state actors, or you could say it's out of self-preservation. I think it's a bit of both. For the record. No, you don't get it. Resistance of Axis is based in showing Israel who is boss. Lol, what? Iran is the biggest stabilizer in that region. They're equally responsible for the genocide in Yemen, dog. Yeah, you're right, dude. It was actually the fucking Western-backed coalition forces, according to literally Western intelligence, Western fucking humanitarian organizations. But you're right. It's actually Iran propping up the fucking Houthis. That is the reason. They just kind of genocided themselves that way. This is the classic conundrum. If you have this attitude, I suspect that you also believe that, you know, Gaza deserved it. Gaza deserved the ethnic cleansing. Because that is precisely the same fucking attitude to have in this situation. You are victim blaming victims of genocide in that circumstance. A ridiculous way to fucking approach the subject matter, but unfortunately all too common in the minds of Americans. Which is really funny because even American institutions like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International don't even fucking agree with you on this front. Okay? Very strange behavior. What? Fuck Israel. I'm not victim blaming genocide. Yemen does not equal Houthis. No, you don't understand that the argument that you're presenting when you say Iran is responsible for the fucking genocide in Yemen is identical to the argument that Israelis present with respect to the genocide in the Gaza Strip. I think you're having a hard time not understanding that. Maybe you think it's not fashionable to do so, to say that about Israel, but you are doing it about Yemen right now when you say Iran is responsible for the genocide in Yemen. It's not. Saudi Arabia and the UAE and the Western coalition forces are responsible for the genocide in Yemen. I said equally responsible, bud. How many were Houthis killing before the Saudis' blockade? Did they not collab with the corrupt regime they supposedly were rebelling against? What do you mean equally responsible? There is no equal responsibility in a genocide. when there's a Saudi blockade and that number of the dead reaches an unimaginable number, the prior civil war kind of falls apart, don't you think? It's like talking about I don't know, fucking Palestinian Authority versus. It's like talking about the political dynamics between Hamas and like former PLO or whatever. When, in fact, there is one galvanizing factor here, one factor that unironically brings everyone to the fray, and that factor is Israel, which is ironic because in the Yemen situation, Israel is also still the same factor that brought everybody together. Remember, victims of genocide do not have to be perfect fucking victims. Obviously, I am not in favor of like Houthi domestic policy. I have also even talked about the fact that they have cursed the Jews on their banner. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not like these guys aren't anti-Semitic, okay? I'm sure there are plenty of anti-Semites, especially in Yemen in general. This has nothing to do with that conversation when we're talking about their resistance to the Israeli genocide, resistance to and the actions that they're taking in an effort to stop the genocide in Gaza. If you don't want the bad guys to look good, don't do worse shit than them, if that makes sense. All right,
consecutive day to discuss a response to that unprecedented barrage of more than 300 missiles and drones early Sunday.
We saw a response, multi-layered, multinational, against that would-be
this guy's my favorite.
ring of
Against
fire that
that.
Iran intended on enduring and putting on Israel. We stopped that.
The coordinated response from a U.S.-led coalition, including Britain and France, thwarting the attack, the IDF saying 99% of those incoming threats intercepted. An Israeli official telling ABC News Iran actually increased the number of ballistic missiles it would fire once it learned of the scope of the U.S.-led coalition against it.
They knew that many were going to be defeated, but the aim was to get as many of them through Israel's defenses as possible.
And for the 12 minutes it took,
I do find it very funny that these guys always have this like very inconsistent narrative that they're like, oh, they failed big time, right? They failed big time. What a massive failure. What a massive fucking failure this was for Iran. Also, simultaneously, They also admit that like Iran openly stated what they were going to do. And it's pretty funny to say both of those things at the same time. It's like, so what's the argument here? That they're really stupid, so they informed everybody ahead of time, thinking that like a lot of the missiles would not get thwarted. Like, what the fuck were they? It's like, oh, what were these guys thinking? They waited 2 weeks, informed the UN Security Council that if they don't do something, they are going to. If the UN Security Council doesn't actually bring Israel to justice for its escalation, then they're going to retaliate in kind, and then openly stated that they were going to retaliate in 72 hours by telling all the fucking regional actors, including the mediator that America was using, Turkey, the NATO country, Turkey. So stupid of them to let us know ahead of time. Look at how dumb these guys are. It's a funny way to do propaganda by the likes of John Kirby, but obviously the message has been heard by the reasonable actors within the State Department who are at least a little bit more pragmatic and not throating Israel in the same way that like Joe Brandon is. You know what I mean? That's why you had fucking General Spiderfucker going on CNN and being like, John Bolton should not be anywhere near the conversation about Iran. He is a psychopath. He said, wait, what were the words that he said? Spider rapist. Goes on fucking CNN and literally says, I thank God every morning I wake up that John Bolton is removed from power. Because if he was anywhere near power with this Iran shit, we would be in like nuclear Holocaust territory. Yeah, they're simultaneously incompetent and also extremely dangerous and calculated is such a funny fucking attitude to have. No, they are definitely infinitely more restrained, partially out of self-preservation, and everybody understood that they had to fucking retaliate because if they don't, Israel's not going to stop. They just keep showing the rest of the regional actors that they have no interest in stopping whatsoever. Okay? They keep telling America, suck my dick over and over again. Everyone sees that shit. What are they supposed to think? When you hit a fucking embassy, why wouldn't they think you're going to hit Iranian soil the next day? Israel has also shown every fucking regional actor for the past at least 30 years, okay, at least for the past 30 years, that the only way you can stop Israel is with force. That's it. They abuse diplomacy. They've abused diplomacy against the Palestinians over and over again. If you have shown yourself as a weak enemy, they will pummel you. Isn't Bibi the main problem? What percentage of Israelis back the bombings? Brother, you are about to find out that it's a massive, massive percentage of Israelis that want the bombing to continue. Now, it doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter because what Israelis want doesn't really matter in this process. What Israelis want doesn't really matter. What we are willing to allow them to do is what matters. We, as in America. That's the issue here. That's why I've been so fucking critical of the Biden administration since October 8th for not doing what is smart, even from a pro-American imperialism perspective. The fact that there is internal contradictions, the fact that there is internal struggle in the U.S. State Department since October 8th is only further reaffirming my commitment to this cause. There are literally State Department actors who are saying we have to restrain Israel because they are destabilizing too much. They are destabilizing too much. Then they're making us look bad to our allies. They're making us look bad to our adversaries. They're making us look weak. Us, the United States of America. They are ruining our soft power capabilities. If we cannot stop our attack dog in the region from going above and fucking beyond and doing genocide to a population. We don't give a fuck about the population, by the way. We don't care about the Palestinian lives. We only care about American interests. Israel going above and beyond is literally fucking up American interests, and many people in the State Department see that reality. That is precisely why there are plenty of people in the State Department that are begging the Biden administration to do restraint. Maybe for the wrong reasons, but it's still, they're like, dude, in the interest of the preservation of the Israeli apartheid, we have to stop them. Meanwhile, the Israeli population is obviously very excited at the prospect of full-blown ethnic cleansing. They have packaged that up perfectly. They don't see the actual violence on the ground. And even if they did, I'm not so sure that they would be on board Or I'm not so sure that they wouldn't be on board with it. And beyond that, they think this is being reframed and being repackaged as we're fighting Hamas. We're fighting Hamas. We're fighting Hamas terror babies. So unfortunately, major percentages, especially in the Jewish Israeli population, are very much in support of the bombing and want this to continue. There are obviously people who are criticizing Netanyahu and protesting Netanyahu. They still want the bombing to continue, mind you. They just want it to stop for now so we can get the fucking hostages out.
Took for those missiles to arc from Iran to Israel, American and Israeli officials unsure if their missile net would hold. It did. A senior Israeli Air Force official telling ABC News multiple Middle Eastern countries provided Israel with an early warning, and Israel's Arrow aerial defense system taking down ballistic missiles seen streaming over Jerusalem. The IDF saying this new video shows Israeli troops pulling one of those bus-sized ballistic missiles out of the Dead Sea. President Biden saying the U.S. is committed to the safety of troops in the region and to Israel's security, but the administration making it clear that the U.S. will not participate in any Israeli counterstrike. Iran says its attack avenged Israel's strike earlier this month that killed 2 top generals at a consulate complex in Syria.
And Israeli officials tell me that the most likely retaliation will be clandestine, possibly a cyber attack or a targeted strike against an Iranian official in Iran. But those officials say that a key consideration will be preserving this defensive coalition that the U.S. built to protect Israel. Michael.
All right, Matt, thank you so much for that.